Indonesia is a Southeast Asian country and the largest archipelago country in the world, spanning across Asia and Oceania. With a population of over 270 million, Indonesia is the fourth most populous country in the world and the most populous Muslim country. The forest area of Indonesia is 120 million hectares, of which 112 million hectares are permanent forest areas, 8.1 million hectares are unconvertible forest areas, and the forest coverage rate is 67.8%. Indonesia occupies 10% of world's tropical rainforest and is rich in natural and biological resources. In 2010, a place in Indonesia suffered a disaster. So what happened that day? Next, we push the time back to 2010. In 2010, Nias Selaton in Indonesia suffered an irreversible disaster. The forest fire burned on this land for more than 3 months. According to statistics, 492 people were killed in this disaster, and more than 2,000 surrounding houses were destroyed. The smoke, dust, and carbon dioxide produced by the fire spread everywhere. But the most terrifying thing is that the natural collapse of the forest trees trapped the large animal in this forest. And most of the large animals were killed by naturally collapsed trees. According to the record found, about 1.5 billion large animals were all smashed to death, and only less than 100 million large animals were trapped or displaced. This fire has attracted global attention. The United Nations, also called as the UN, has also been urging Indonesia to carry out forest remediation. But at that time, Indonesia not only faced the destruction of the ecological environment, but also suffered heavy economic losses. After President Joko took office in 2015, he decided to rebuild the destroyed forest, and not only to maintain the forest but also to protect the large animals in the forest from being hit by the trees. So President Joko decided to send former Russian plant and geological surveyors Tchaikovsky and Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious to measure the distance between the trees so that they can start planting the trees later. The two experts arrived in Nias Selaton forest and began the measurement. During the measurement process, they were surprised to find the distance between the two surviving trees in this forest was just enough to protect large animals. For the two surviving trees, there's a larger tree and a shorter tree. If the disaster occurs and the longer tree collapses, the tree will only hit on the shorter tree tip. Two experts consider this long-short tree solution to be a feasible solution. But if it needs to be reported, they need to know the length of the two trees and the angle which the long trees fell. Next up, they began to measure. They found out that the length of the shorter tree is 3.5 meters long. The distance between the two trees is 5.7 meters long. Due to the unexpected reason which they broke up the tree in pieces, they cannot measure the length of the longer tree and the angles related to the longer tree. Although they cannot measure the height of the tree, but Tchaikovsky remembers that the Pythagorean theorem will help them solve the length of the longer tree. Since the measurement is a triangle and based on the geological knowledge, they already know that the longer tree has the biggest value in all length measurements. So they began to think that should be the hypotenuse, which is going to be solved. The other two sides are the distance between two trees and the length of the two trees. Based on the measurement they have, they will use the Pythagorean theorem formula, which A and B should be 3.5 meters and 5.7 meters, and C is the unknown thing. That means they will get 3.5 meters to the second power plus 5.7 meters to the second power equals to C meters to the second power, which 12.25 meters plus 32.49 meters C meters to the second will be equals to 44.74. Next, they will be using the square root to know the longer tree side, which after the division by the square root, they got the rounded number of 6.7 meters. Tchaikovsky is very confident that it is the length of the longer tree, so they continue to measure the angles. Unfortunately, due to the accident of the broken tree, they only know that the angle B has the right angle, which is 90 degrees, and they cannot measure the other angle. Tchaikovsky is confused about how to measure the rest of the angles, while supercalifragilisticexpialidocious had a great idea. He thinks that SOHCAHTOA would help them solve out the measurement of the rest two angles. So he started to calculate one of the angles, which is angle A. In order to calculate more accurately, they decided to use tangent to calculate the measurement of angle A. First of all, tangent is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent side, which they already know the measurement of the side is 3.5 meters and 5.7 meters. Next, they will have to use the formula, which that equals to 31.55 degrees with round up. The next thing needs to measure is to measure angle C. To get that measurement, they decided to use the cosine as a calculation. Cosine is equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse side. They already know both sides, which are 3.5 meters and 6.7 meters. Next, they have to use the formula and get the answer, which is 58.45 degrees with round up. After they know all the measurement of sides and angles, they went back to tell President Joko about this feasible solution. President Joko was very excited about the solution because he waited this plan for a long time. He has a strong belief of rebuilding a great forest and having a great protection on large animals. After 2 days, President Joko announced this plan with the solution included. He promised that the forest will be finished planting with 4 years, and all large animals will be able to get back to the forest and live normally.